Hello, Paul. Thank you for being here with us to talk a little bit about your new book called Training Your Mind to Realize Its Potential. So, can you tell us a little bit more about the book?
Yeah, sure. Training Your Mind to Realize Its Potential is the second book in a trilogy. It's basically about the evolution of human consciousness,
Right.
using the Zen 10 Oxygen story as a guide. Um, Book one was called The Joy of Hard Work, with a title within the title, Neurosis of the Human Condition and the Failure of Materialism. That related to the Oxygen story stages 1 to 4. Training Your Mind to Realize the Potential is stages 5 to 6 of the journey, with a title within the title called Used to be an Overachiever, but I'm all right now. Book 3 I'm presently working on, which relates to stage 7 to 10 of the Oxygen story, which is the final stage of the story. If I can sort of go into book 3, because that's where I'm working on now, and then Training Your Mind will come into it as well. There's a journey called the Path to Truth, which is the same as the Oxygen story. The Path to Truth, stages 1 to 6, is relating to the spiritual path. It's about learning spirituality, learning meditation. So you're talking the beginning and the intermediate. Stage 1 to 4 is then Oxygen story, stage 5 to 6. But stage 7 to 10 of the Oxygen story is the same as the Path to Truth. And what it suggests in the Path to Truth, you forgetting of truth, forgetting the person who is trying to understand truth, return to the source and repose in the nothing. That sounds complex. To break it down is we have to learn spiritual teachings and practices, and then we have to unlearn it. It's not difficult to learn, but it's difficult to unlearn. In the Tao, it talks about adding to, but then the journey is to eventually take away. For example, Michelangelo, when he did the statue of David, he spoke of hacking away to find the David. So it's like the materialistic journey is about constantly adding and adding and adding. The spiritual path is about taking away till we return to our true nature. Actually, it's the way of returning to where we were as a child before we became materially conditioned as an adult. The way I perceive this book is also to do with the evolution of human consciousness, and using a visual image. I imagine a building over 5 floors. There's a basement, there's a ground floor, the first, second and third floor. The first, second and third floor is to do with the spiritual path. The basement and the ground floor is to do with materialism. The basement is the materialistic life at its unconscious level, which is basically to do with the mind living at the mercy of external conditions, and also living really in a mind that has no control of itself and has a tendency to go to the negative. That's the basement. And what I suggest in the book is if you want to get out of the basement, then get out of debasement, which means get out of negative thinking. So that's completely unconsciousness. The next 4 levels are to do with levels of consciousness. So the ground floor is basically when people use material phenomena like goal setting, visualization, positive thinking, which is an evolution of human consciousness, although it's limited to self-interest and self-aggrandizement, it is still an evolution of human consciousness. And people then become, rather than a liability to themselves and others, they become an asset. So it is a progress. It is adding to yourself positive thinking, visualization, goal setting, that all can bring you material success for yourself. The spiritual path, to go from the ground floor to the first floor, it is when you go from those basic needs, basically with ambition, and you either go to the level on the first floor, which is more for others. It's to do with things like compassion, caring, consideration. It's not just about you, it's about your community, the world at large, and everything else. So the spiritual journey that I'm conveying in The Joy of Hard Work, the first book, talked in two parts. One from material prosperity, then to go into the beginning of the spiritual path, which is the Zen Occident story 1 to 4. Great. Right, what this drawing is, this is a character called, in the book, called Toshiro. He's on the ground floor. What he would like is to fly up in the balloon, which suggests to rise up, to transcend. The dilemma is those baskets, not the baskets, those sandbags are the desire for enlightenment and their desire for spiritual peace or spiritual sensations. Now, people can do a meditation and they can go up a little bit. Well, because of all these desires, which is in the realm of the second chakra, it pulls them back down. To be in freedom, liberation, or realization is to be in the seventh chakra. And that means where you go up. So what it is necessary to do, using also the metaphor of the weighing scale, you drop all these desires, and then the weighing scale goes up. Or like the hot air balloon, by dropping these sandbags, the mind goes up. So it's having no desire. There's a statement Ram Dass uses, the experiencer is separate from the experience. The enjoyer is separate from the enjoyment. The one who desires to enjoy and the one who desires to experience gets stuck. So it's letting go of the desire for enjoyment, experience, any state. And there's a natural gravitation. It rises up. So the idea then is to learn a meditation practice where we can eradicate all these desires, and which basically come from thought. So there's thinking, and the idea in meditation and evolution or freedom or liberation is to go into a state of non-thinking. So the idea is then to basically empty the mind. So the way to empty the mind is through meditation. So what I'd like to go back to the drawings, and I would show you some ideas and suggestions of meditation practice that can assist in this journey. This is to do with like a material framework. They call it duality. It's really living at the mercy of external conditions. So what you have is the pain and the pleasure and the mind that goes to the past and the future. And that is basically duality. The idea of non-duality, which is down here, it is taking the mind to a point of equilibrium and then being in the present, which is basically alignment. So it's to be in go from the pain, pleasure, past, future to the present and bring it to alignment. So how do we get our mind to stay in the present? So what I'd like to show is a simple meditation practice visually. So this drawing, it's of this first drawing. It's like the mind before any sort of meditation is attempted. These are all the flies in the mind. It's like the thoughts are everywhere. What we need to do is get to a place of focus on one thought and let all these other thoughts go out. So what the idea is to have a door, let all the flies go out except one fly. So this one fly is basically one-pointedness, and we need to try and get to a system of keeping the mind focused on this one fly. And what happens is, imagine you use breathing, and you think, okay, every one breath is for 1 second, and you try and hold the mind for 10 seconds. Imagine a circle and a dot in the middle. You want to try and get the fly to stay in the middle of the circle. That is the way to one-pointedness. So what happens is the fly will be zzz everywhere. And then as flies do, like say you're in a room, the fly will stop. That is your mind stopping briefly. So imagine you breathe and you do that like 5 times up and down, that's 10. If you hold your mind like that for 10 seconds, that gives you a moment of clarity. Then it's just a process of thinking, okay, I'll try and do it for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. If you do that 60, it's a way of holding your mind one pointedness for 1 minute. But you have to be prepared, accept that the mind will go quiet and it'll keep busy, but it's always bringing it back to that middle point, the center. As Ramana Maharshi once said, never allow thought to run on or it will be unending. Take it back to its starting place again and again, and it and the mind will dive in action. The mind exists only by thought. Stop thought and there is no mind. This meditation practice, you have this character here, Toshiro. This is the mind. The logs that are burning is thoughts. If you want to stop or slow down the amount of thoughts, just imagine for 10 seconds you don't add another log. Maybe for 20 seconds, 30 seconds, 40, 50, up to 60 seconds, 1 minute. Just imagine, regulate your breathing, imagine the circle with the dot in the middle, and you decide for 1 minute you will just hold the mind focused one-pointedly. And what happens? The thoughts start to diminish. The more proficient you get in the practice, it goes down, and the objective here is the thoughts to go. And then in Zen, in the Oxygen story, is one of the final stages. Transcending body and mind, return to the source, repose in the nothing. This story, this little picture here, is actually something from Zen. It's called A Mirror with No Reflection. It seems so obvious, but it's difficult for the mind to do this. This is the past. You go into the present, or here, and then when you go past, it's gone. So the past doesn't exist, the future doesn't exist. It's only the present. What we do, we've got the past. Something happens in the present, we go into the future, but we still keep the image. So the idea is, past, you're in the present, and then you carry on, leaving no image, a mirror with no reflection. This sort of metaphor can give an assistance to staying in the present. This drawing is a tribute to Dr. Wayne Dyer, and it comes from one of his talks called Manifest Your Destiny. The idea is, the way he conveyed it was, it's to do with taking responsibility, which is important in your practice. You're walking down the road, there's a hole in the road, you fall straight into the hole, but it's not your fault. It takes ages to get out the hole. Next time you go down the hole, you fall in the hole, you realize it's your mistake, and you get out straight away. As sort of an addition that I've added to this is to learn from your mistakes very, very quickly, to fast track your progress. You go down the hole, you immediately take responsibility, and there's a trampoline, and then you just get out the hole straight away. So you don't even have to make the effort of climbing out. You just bounce on the trampoline, you jump out. The last one, which Dr. Dyer conveyed, was you're walking down the road, you see the hole, you don't fall in the hole, you walk around it, walk past it.
this is a visual image, plus it's also an auto-suggestion, also be called a mantra. So you have, this is what you call lower consciousness. This is higher consciousness, and this is highest consciousness. And it's sort of based on the chakras. So our lower consciousness is based on the 3 lower chakras of attachment, desire, and ego. Higher consciousness relates to the 4th, 5th, and 6th chakra, which can be considered sympathy, understanding, wisdom. But then the point from the 6th to the 7th chakra, which is quite a journey, it is a place of going to, using vocabulary that's been described as voidness, emptiness, nothingness, source. So this is where I'd call it an intense concentration, which in yoga is called dhyana, in Zen it's called joriki. You can sort of blitz, if you like, to the heavens. That is to suggest that the sky, the heavens, transcendental. So voidness, emptiness, nothingness, source, and then you go up. What goes up must come down. Then you return down with intuition, energy, inspiration, and bliss. So imagine you're going from lower consciousness to the highest consciousness, from your 1st chakra up to your 6th, then from your 6th intense concentration to your 7th. It's like you're going up into heaven, but then like an electrical current that has to be earthed, it comes back down again. The key point is the heart. Spiritual teacher Sri Chinmoy once said, "Heart is oneness, and oneness is satisfaction, and satisfaction is perfection. If it is in the mind is division. Only when the light enters into the mind from the heart, the mind is illumined." So as you're going up, a key development in the spiritual path is opening the heart. So from the heart, you can then go up to, it purifies when it goes to the mind. Your key point is the sixth chakra. You call it one-pointedness. You call it the third eye. When you open the third eye, that gives you access to go higher. In the Christian terminology, they call it Christ consciousness. So, as an affirmation, no grasping, no attachment, no desire, no ego. You close a trap door. You close down lower consciousness. Then you carry on going up to sympathy, understanding, wisdom. And then from wisdom, you go to voidness, emptiness, nothingness, source. Then you come back down, intuition, energy, inspiration, bliss. So the focus really of all of this is you're rising into what they call oneness. This is separation. This is the commencement into oneness, where we're all one when we're not separate. Heart goes up and we come back down to the heart. This results in a being of compassion, kindness, service, all the altruistic things that is the best in human beings. This drawing is obviously maybe interest for children, but it is for the child within all of us. As Jesus once said, "Unless you become like a little child, you shall not enter the kingdom of heaven." So this is from a television program, a British television program with these puppets called Sooty and Sweep. Let's see. This one in the children's program is Sooty, and this one is Sweep. What I'm doing, I've reversed them round, and we're going to have this one as Sweep and this one as Sooty. Sooty stands for shenanigans of the ego. The ego mind is lower consciousness. So if we get the ego mind out, then we have the spirit mind. There's the ego entity, or there's the spirit. So the idea is for Sweep to sweep out Sooty. So like a child may comb their hair, brush their teeth. Every day we sweep out Sooty. Laundry. Okay. This drawing is Toshiro. What it is, this is Toshiro, this is the ego, this is spirit, this is the ego entity. You throw the ego out. You confine the ego, or you take him to a steel egg. You close the door, you lock in the ego. You put a sliding door bolt, you put another sliding door bolt. Then without the ego confined in the steel egg, then you can practice your meditation. Now imagine a visual, an affirmation to go with that on the next drawing. So Toshiro goes, ego no go, egg you go, E-I-E-I-O. Ego no go, egg you go, E-I-E-I-O. So it concludes with Toshiro doing his meditation practice. This is a drawing. It's one of the predicaments of the spiritual path. It is when we start to make progress, we start to have what they call extrasensory perceptions, which can be quite a temptation, and it can quite a sticking place. And if we, for example, get abilities like what do you call them? Mediums and things like that, or people who can read minds, and there's a way of making money from it. People can stop their progress. They go up the hill, they go to the siddhi shop. That's what they call it. These extrasensory perceptions. They call them siddhis. They take their siddhis and then they go back down the mountain. All those perceptions need to be dropped, like all dropped here, and then the steep climb up the mountain needs to continue. And I'm going to read a few things from profound spiritual teachers. This one is from Sri Chinmoy. The use of occult powers in no way elevates anybody's consciousness. Once you get truth, light and bliss, you won't care for Kundalini powers. That's another word for siddhis, Kundalini powers. And this is from Ramana Maharshi. If verily peace of mind is the ever-present state of liberation, tell me how can they who yoke their mind to siddhis, which are unobtainable except through the activity of the mind, become merged in the bliss of liberation which settles the agitation of the mind. And one other one finally. A one-pointedness mind can do wonders, but when we direct it towards worldly gains, we are caught in the whirlpool of selfish desires. Many on the path fall victim to the temptation of acquiring siddhis, supernatural powers, and forget their objective of attaining serenity, tranquility, and self-realization. This final drawing came out of an emptiness of the mind. The ego is a destroyer. Spirit is a creator.
The last drawing that you just saw came out of the emptiness of the mind. It's an idea that if we didn't spend on nuclear armament and worked on nuclear disarmament, how much money could be used for the redistribution of wealth?